Hello, Modern World History. So this video is to just review some of the things that we looked at with the exam review activity today in class. Just a few reminders and hopefully some more guidance and just another opportunity to kind of reinforce the expectation here for the exam tomorrow. We shared out from our group work to the board, and we went through Scientific Revolution, Enlightenment Thinkers, and French Revolution a little bit, but didn't quite get to Napoleon, so I wanted to make this video to kind of catch up a little bit. So, on Scientific Revolution, the question was what conditions caused new scientific thinking to bloom into revolution. So, some people wrote, as it says here, high taxes, high prices, and we talked about how that was an issue leading to the many revolutions, by the way, but in particular the French Revolution. The question is asking about new scientific thinking. So those high taxes and high prices are more economic issues. We want to make sure that we understand the conditions thematically and reread what the question's actually looking at. Now, however, Rene Descartes, the theory of inductive reasoning, now we're getting to our scientific thinking, led to the new thinking of experimentation. That was Francis Bacon with the scientific method, right? So that we would learn through observation, and that also relates to inductive reasoning, but we would learn through observation. And remember, when you're looking at this stuff, this is as opposed to what? Being told by the church, being told by the government. Now, individuals can decide for themselves through their own observations and use their knowledge their understanding that they've built about the world to make choices as individuals. That's the big theme that we're looking at in this whole unit. So this is actually the sheet that you had that you worked on in groups. It says here at the bottom, the theory of inductive reasoning supported by Rene Descartes caused a new method of thinking and performing experiments which led to a bloom in the revolution. Just remember, you got to look at Francis Bacon for the scientific method on that. Also, bring in more of the other scientists. What about Galileo? What about the conflict there between science and the church? The kinds of issues that he faced, challenging the geocentric theory with the heliocentric theory, and how does that relate to previous science, and maybe bring in Copernicus, right? There's other things to look at there, and you will find that stuff in your textbook, in your notes, but you can also find it on the card deck located in the card decks folder in the About tab of Google Classroom. Enlightenment Thinkers. We spent a lot of time on Enlightenment Thinkers, and here it says about Thomas Hobbes, Locke, differentiated two ideas about government, two different views about government, and I made sure that you look at the important parts. This is that one of them is talking about, excuse me, the how people can govern themselves. That's Locke, and how Hobbes is saying an absolute monarchy is best because people need to be governed. They need a strong government. Remember that they come from two sets of experiences. Hobbes, English Civil War, violence and killing is used to order the people. That situation is more chaotic and brutal. They needed a absolute ruler, a dictator, to bring them out of that situation. Locke, he's observing, not too long after, the Glorious Revolution, where a smooth transition of power can occur when William and Mary restore the English throne, and Oliver Cromwell's dictatorship is no more. So think about stuff like that, how the experiences of these philosophers impacted what they know and what they've written about it. Also look at Montesquieu, Rousseau, and Voltaire. Voltaire, the voice, freedom of speech, individual freedoms. Montesquieu, the separation of powers, and Rousseau, unjust laws are unhealthy for a society. When you're looking at this, make sure you're making the connections. This is the sheet from your work today. It says freedom of speech backed by Voltaire changed the way people viewed the universe and their place in it by allowing people to express themselves and their ideas. That's important. That's a nice statement because it brings in one of the points of view, but it also brings in the reason why it changed people's view of the universe and their place in it. That's important. The reason. You can't have a thesis statement without the claim and the reason, right? Moving on, Thomas Hobbes and John Locke brought on two different views of government. Locke emphasized life, liberty, and property, believing people could govern themselves. This is perfect, right? You're explaining the importance of his life, liberty, and property ideas. However, Hobbes believed in absolute monarchy. These two thinkers brought in new ideas to the government, influenced people's views. Well, how so? How did this change government? Get into the individual, the power of the people to change and to govern themselves. Maybe there's another Enlightenment thinker that connects to, and also refer to the card decks that are available on Google Classroom or Quizlet. If you want to join the class on Quizlet and you find it, go for it there if that's what's easier for you. The French Revolution. So we ended with this part in class today. The high taxes on the third estate. Also think about the debt. I wrote that in red over on the right. Think about the debt incurred from helping the United States or the American colonists win their war for independence, their war against Great Britain. The inequality of the estates that led to the third estate being unsatisfied to revolt. Exactly. Now, let's start filling it in with some of those examples of events. The tennis court oath, for example, where does that fit in here? And then reading your sheet here from the tables, the reign of terror was a societal condition that led people to question authority. Inequality of estates. Okay, so reign of terror was a societal condition that led people to question authority. Now, think about maybe the Great Fear. The Great Fear reminds me more of people questioning authority, the peasants in the countryside. The Reign of Terror also leads to this issue, but it's very much intensified and it's more organized, which is really, 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 really sketchy. Whenever you think of Reign of Terror, connect it with the Committee on Public Safety and Robespierre, the leader of that committee, because this is what it's all centered on, and the device that they used, the guillotine. The guillotine is significant because it was designed and vetted by doctors that said this is the humane way to kill someone. So it's not like they're trying to be brutal with all this killing and murder and however you want to look at it. They were trying to be humane about it so that there wasn't this constant slow death. They wanted to be quick and clean and as opposed to perhaps messy and sloppy, and it's tough to even think of it that way sometimes, but it was a reality. Also, it says here inequality in the three estates, the high taxes, getting low wages, leading to be very dissatisfied. So low wages, high prices, high taxes. These people are left with not much they can do to survive. Okay, and they're blaming it on the king. He's got the palace at Versailles, right? This is really bad. But then there's also the environment. The environment is another major thing to consider here with the crop failures. Okay, and finishing up with Napoleon. So Napoleon is kind of saving the day. We don't always think about Napoleon as saving the day, but he really is. The Directory, which was put into place after Robespierre is killed, and the Reign of Terror is obviously seen as a terrible thing. We don't want that sort of issue happening again. Napoleon brings order, and the Directory is voted to be dissolved, right? Think back to our timelines for this stuff. Now, it says here France had terrible debt before Napoleon came to power, and within a year that was fixed. His economic reforms were very important. He had more equality of taxes. That changed a lot of things. Religious freedom in France. Education reforms, the Lycée, that's France's public education. Napoleonic Code was established, and a lot of these social moral codes, legal codes from the Napoleonic Code are still in place in France today. So that really affects modern Europe, right? Let's also take it to the next level, and the Congress at Vienna. This is important because when Napoleon fails at Waterloo, and he fails the invasion of Russia, which is such a bad idea. Throughout history, it's always been a bad idea. Ask Hitler. Napoleon is too far from his supply lines. The weather's too rough. His people are dying. They're hungry. And really, they cannot sustain the fight at that point. They've grown too big, gone too far, too soon. So it's important to consider the weather factor there, the supply factor. At this point, most of Europe is severely impacted by Napoleon's expansion. From Napoleon's expansion and from the issues Europe was facing, the Congress at Vienna it's like an early United Nations or precursor to the League of Nations, where these powerful countries, come together and are working together to restore Europe to some sort of economics and political stability, political as well, right? These are some of the things that you wrote on your paper here. It's pretty much the same thing that was put on the board. The Napoleonic Code was established in early 1800 that is still in effect in modern Europe. It's important that when you're talking about the legacy and the development of modern Europe, that you include a few things that are still going on today: the education reform, the Napoleonic Code, and also this idea or this concept of powerful countries in Europe coming together to restore Europe when it's in a war situation. One last thing about Napoleon's war and his tactics: scorched earth. It's also sometimes called total war. It's when they're going to burn the crops, steal everything, so that the people in the countryside, they're robbed of their resources. They can't feed the armies that they're fighting with, and their structures are destroyed. And it gets to the point where the people don't support the fighting against the invading army as much, right? So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will see you tomorrow.